what is rest for someone isn't necessarily rest for the others, right? And a lot of that is people impute their worldview on rest on you. Like, well, you need to just relax. You've been doing all this for so long. It's like, no, I just don't want to make a decision. I just want to be in a place where it doesn't matter where it is and someone's not demanding something of my time. And for me, that's rest. So it's
Other
just easier.
people imposing expectations for your rest
Correct.
is not the same
Yeah.
as you doing it for
Yeah,
yourself.
like you need to hang out with these types of people, or you should do this for rest, right?
Yeah.
That you have the resources, so be able to do this. And to me, that's not rest. So I think the big part of it is define what's rest for you.
All right, welcome back. We're glad you've returned for episode 4 of the ReedFlections podcast on life, leadership, and learning. I'm Art Calderon. I'll be steering us through our conversation. With me is Reed Niffler. He is a husband and a father. He runs a large, growing global company headquartered here in the heartland of America. Reed, you have a lot of personal and professional experiences that you want to share through this podcast. And we've been talking about the importance of setting priorities for our lives. Episode 1, 2, and 3, we started with prioritizing God, then prioritizing family, and finally productivity instead of just being busy or just having a job or just working, but productivity. Now, today, the 4th installment is taking priority for taking time to enjoy and rest. Rest and enjoyment. Rest and enjoying life they're important. Important for us to remain focused and healthy emotionally and otherwise. But it's tough. It's tough with a lot of priorities, a lot of competing priorities. Life to be successful at life is a lot of work. But what do you do to prioritize rest and fun?
Yeah, I think the starting point is with all our priorities is first perspective. And so if we are looking at rest as a way to say, I can't wait until I get a break, right? As we don't want rest or enjoyment to be leaving something behind
Okay.
because our perspective would be, I need to get away from what I was. I need to get away. I need a break. I
A
need
lot
to
of
get
people
away.
look at retirement that way, right?
That's right. I need to get away from work,
Uh-huh.
right? And on the other side, we need to say, I can't wait until, right? I can't wait until. And so that's perspective because we're not going to get the benefit of rest and enjoyment if we're leaving something. We're going to get the benefit if we're going towards it.
Okay.
And so we should look forward to a vacation. We should look forward to a time to interact with others. And so I think the first thing is perspective because the benefit we would receive from rest or enjoyment is taken away by when we're trying to get away from something, but it is amplified when we're going towards it. And so I think the first thing is perspective. It's the time is the same, the activity is the same, but our perspective is the first thing. And so when we're prioritizing it, we need to say, hey, I am going towards this because it's something I've earned, something I need, something that'll make me even more productive, something to make me a better family member, something that'll make me better in my faith when I have rest. And as we kind of work through this episode, we'll talk about that. So I think the first thing is perspective. Don't leave because we need a break.
Okay.
Go because I look forward to my break. And that's the first part of that perspective.
So, when I was being productive for a long time in my basement, I remember I decided I'm going to finish the basement. I said, man, how hard could it be? And so I ended up cramming that 6-month project into 7 years.
Well done.
But what I learned was after it was done, I really learned this. I enjoyed going down there on the weekends or a couple of hours after work and creating and being productive. And it was like a rest time for me. I would bring the kids down there sometimes and they would get the scraps from my framing 2x4s, whatever, and they'd build little towers. They were little. Another time, I remember I was starting to drywall. So before I drywalled, I said, "Okay, kids, write your name on these 2x4s. They're going to be in there for all of history to discover later." And so it became a sense of enjoyment. And I looked forward to it. Not only, hey, I can't wait till I finish this basement, but I looked forward to the process and the time away from work, and I would even bring the kids in there. Now, we talked a little bit about our priorities, and the first priority, of course, on our first podcast was about God being the priority. So God as the creator, if we're familiar with the creation story, God created the heavens and the earth. He created everything, right? In 6 days. And on the seventh day, he rested and he said his work was very good. Specifically, book of Genesis, real good. Now, say more about why we should take time to rest and reflect to live our best lives, because God didn't rest. He didn't go, man, am I exhausted? This God gig wearing me out, right? He rested for a specific purpose. Talk about how we can
Yeah.
use that model in our lives.
So first of all, I think it's an important point, and again, given that he is the creator and we were created in his image, so we should embody the activities that were there.
Right.
He worked first, right? There was 6 days. I'm not advocating for a 6-day work week, but he produced first, right, instead of rested first. And I think that's the key. He can enjoy his rest because of productivity. Sometimes the value of rest and enjoyment is actually taken away because we didn't produce first. And as I meet family members that retire, my parents included, and others, that time before you get the sense of productivity. Then when you retire, like, what did I produce today? And I don't enjoy rest the same because you may have enjoyed, particularly an event. Because it was something that you earned or could invest in post. And I think that's part of it too, is we produce first so that that enjoyment is in natural production. And so the same thing is I think sometimes we choose things for that don't necessarily, that we may enjoy or may renew us, but may be dilutive to our other priorities. So, when I was early on deciding, how would I allocate my free time, people are like, you should pick up golf. And first of all,
Horrible idea, by the
it
way.
doesn't give me any rest personally. One, my natural abilities are not hand-eye coordination, right? If I'm gonna pick something, it's not hand-eye coordination, and I just don't have the ability to make the adjustments that other people can around that. So I'm gonna be ultimately frustrated. On top of that, if I'm in those environments, I'm competitive.
Uh,
And clearly, there's a far reaching on golf, of competition, and you're only with three people. So largely the people that golf regularly are going to be way better. And so that didn't bring me any rest. And then it is a long time. And, now granted, I did measure my productivity by number of shots per hour, and I was getting more productivity than everybody I was playing with.
but you're like dragging everybody down,
I
right?
think so.
You're
And
the
so
guy. You're
and
the
so
guy that
then I'm
everybody
like,
has to
I
wait
have
for.
so many shots that I need to accelerate my drive, and so then I'd take a worse shot, and so then they're more frustrated, and certainly by the number of balls that went in the water, it was not highly productive, and so as a result, I'm saying I don't enjoy this. Other
Yeah.
people do,
Yeah.
and so I can't drive that to the level of enjoyment. And so then I said, as I really look at that, and some people as they're looking at what they enjoy and they want to apply their time to, I said, what do I enjoy doing? I enjoy learning, and so the other thing is, what is a break for me is making a decision. Because I make tons of decisions at work and in life and plan. So for some of that is as you decide. So one of the things we enjoy is going out to dinner as a family on a maybe more regular basis for enjoyment. And so my wife's like, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "I don't want to make the decision. That's enjoyment for me. Is I will literally go anywhere, and you make the decision." And the second thing I enjoy is the time with family. And so, of course, family's second, but this is an opportunity to put those priorities together, right? That one, I don't have to make the decision. That's relaxing for me. If someone else can just say, here's what you're eating, perfect. I don't have to decide.
It's funny. My father, a retired warden for the Department of Corrections in California, and he was warden of San Quentin State Penitentiary. In fact, a very notorious place. A lot of stress, a lot of decisions, and he used to always say, "When I retire, I'm going to get some part-time job where everybody tells me what to do. Even the janitor tells me what to do." And I couldn't really get it as a young kid, or as a young man. But as I got older, I realized, oh, he just doesn't want to have to always be the one making the decision. Wants to be able to give that up, and that was freeing for him.
And I think that brings up a valid point that what is rest for someone isn't necessarily rest for the others, right? And a lot of that is people impute their worldview on rest on you. Like, well, you need to just relax. You've been doing all this for so long. It's like, no, I just don't want to make a decision. I just want to be in a place where it doesn't matter where it is and someone's not demanding something from my time. And for me, that's rest, right? It's not a matter of where I'm at. I can be anywhere and not have somebody demand my time. And then the other thing, and that's why family's important with regard to rest, because they already understand that about me. I don't have to go say, well, I'm just going to go not make the decision because you look at me in this particular role, and that's my rest. Then I have to explain that with whomever I'm with. And so in those environments, you're saying, hey, I don't want to make a decision. And then I also go where I'm autonomous, right? So if I'm at a work environment, I can't rest because there's expectations on me no matter what's happening. So even if I'm on a work trip with someone else, and they're like, well, why didn't you traveled here? Why didn't you go see X, Y, and Z? Or go do tourist activities? Well, that may be rest for someone else to see
Right.
these parts of the world and go on these parts of vacation. But I'm on a work trip and there's expectations around me. And they're going to look at the associated time,
Yep.
like, what did you do with your time? And you didn't see this or you saw that?
Uh-huh.
And like, okay, now I have to explain that
So
there. And so it's
other
just easier.
people imposing expectations for you for your rest is
Correct.
not the same
Yeah.
as you doing it for
Yeah,
yourself.
like you need to hang out with these types of people, or you should do this for rest,
Yeah.
right? That you have the resources, so be able to do this. And to me, that's not rest. So I think the big part of it is define what's rest for you. And that was the step for me on the front end of saying, okay, for me is what do I enjoy doing? Maybe not what others enjoy doing, but that's okay, right? I think so many times is, oh, you don't golf, you're a business. There's so many deals are put on the golf course, right?
Yeah.
There's all these things around rest. Well, then that becomes work. You're just telling me put deals on the golf course. I mean, that's work for me, and I don't want to make a decision, and I don't want to be, in that area around that. And so that's rest for me. And then the other thing is do what we enjoy, right? And so again, I enjoy learning, and so part of someone else making the decision where I go to eat or whatever the case might be is I'm learning what they like. I'm very habitual, as many people are, and I would probably pick the same 5 to 7 restaurants. Well, that doesn't appeal to my interests, which is learning.
Mm.
So if I travel and I go many parts of the world, I'd say you pick your favorite restaurant because there's a reason it's their favorite restaurant, I think. And then I don't have to make the decision and they're going to be happy there. But then I try new food. And so, and I try something new. And I ask the waiters even, what do you recommend here? And that's learning and trying a new flavor and something different, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
And so if they're making the decision, this is rest for me. They make the decision and then they're leading me down something they enjoy that is learning for me. To me, that's rest. And you can do that in many different environments because I think sometimes rest is a destination, not a mindset. And that's a trap for people that if I can get home, I can rest. Well, your home may not be stable in some cases and you can't rest. That's not the case for everybody. Or if I'm on the beach, I can rest. Well, what about that beach makes it restful for you? And so it's a mindset of rest versus a destination because I think I need a vacation. Well, we may not be able to in a stage of life afford it. There were stages of our life we couldn't afford a
Sure.
vacation. But that is just a rest is more considered a break from expectations
Mhm.
and productivity. And where do we get that break and what do we enjoy?
Our family took a break one time. We decided we're gonna do a trip, and here in Nebraska, in north central Nebraska, there's a river which is not much of a river, but it's an official river. It's called the Nile. I can't even say it. I could never pronounce it.
Niobrara, I can pronounce for you.
Niobrara. There
I'll
you
do the
go.
pronunciation for
That's
you.
right. And what you do is you go up to the Niobrara River and you get a big tank, and it's literally a tank that they use to feed to water livestock, and it floats. And you get inside that and you float down this river. So in theory, it sounded like great getting all 4 kids and my wife, and we're going to drive up there for 4 or 5 hours and float down.
If
What
that's
I
a good theory, you need to work on your theories, but
yeah,
go
my
ahead.
theory's bad. Yeah, I need definitely to work on that. So turns out this river was not like the Missouri or the Mississippi where it's like 25 or 50 or 100 feet deep. It's like in some places it's like less than a foot deep. So we're going down this river in our tank, and it's packed with people. I think we were the only sober people on that river. Turns out.
That happens.
And then we kept hitting the sandbank and we kept stopping. So what did that mean for me? I had to climb out, push us off this sandbank, get back in till we hit the next sandbank. Next one, had to get out again. And it was okay for the first hour, the second hour. By the fifth hour, I wasn't having a great time. It was a great idea. This will be restful. And I look back now and laugh, but honestly, the vacation was not very restful for me. The rest of them, they had a great time, but for me, it was a lot of work to get off that sandbar. And I realized that okay, so maybe my expectations, like maybe are up here, but it for restfulness, it scored down in lower quartile.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you should talk to your employer about getting paid more to upgrade your mode of transportation. I think it wasn't the river. You could have taken like a tube or maybe a boat with a motor on the back.
right.
Either one of those cases.
Helicopter and just flew over it. Maybe
That would have been the case, right? But I think to your point is if we're with others when we're doing rest, it may be competing interests because
yeah,
what is enjoyment? Like I know everybody else enjoys this too. And that's our banter back and forth. But sometimes that isn't the case. And I think when we're looking at rest, if we're with other people in particular, we need to do that. And I think that's also saying with rest, we need to have a balance of that. As I look at my year, I have 2 vision trips. And for me, that's a period of time where I go and rest and really think about the next step. And so those are after critical high productive times, right? Whether that's our annual convention or a busy summer
But
season.
those vision trips, they're restful for you.
And also gives you clarity, right? Because sometimes we're just inundated with interruption, and that's in our lives. And even when we're with those that are close to us, our family and otherwise. But if I'm only doing that, it's isolation to some degree.
Uh-huh.
And so, additionally, as I balance out the rest, I have, as I look at my rest, I'm doing that with regard to my priorities. And so then I have family trips. So with regard to that rest, and I look at a time where collectively our family is the most available. And for us, that's when school's not in, right? That's where everybody's at. And that's really between the Christmas and New Year's because it's a low time for me at work. And then, of course, the kids are out of school as well. And so we always plan a family trip then. And so that's restful. And then the third category. So there's by my time, myself, then with my whole family, and then the others with my wife. And so her rest time is when the kids are all occupied. And so then I'm like, okay, they have to be in school, especially my youngest, so that she can feel rest. So she knows he's taken care of because that's her job, right? She stays home and takes care of the kids. So I recognized, wait a minute, I need to see a time where he's in school, that he won't necessarily have many things going on,
Uh-huh.
that he can be
This is
watched.
your youngest.
My youngest, my
yeah.
11-year-old.
Yeah.
And that he can be watched and be available. So she cannot rest. That's her departure from work. If it's around a time where he's got busy activities or my other kids have busy activities, she won't be able to rest. She's thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I recognize that early in our lives. So what is taken from that is we can't just think about ourselves and rest. We think about who else is with us and make sure it's restful for them. And so as I go into that family planning of the vacation, I'm saying, what will they enjoy and rest? And usually have people provide feedback. And so my wife says, hey, I don't want to cook. That's restful for her. Well, I don't cook anyway, so I don't cook whether we're at home or otherwise. So then if I'm only planning a vacation for my sake, I'm saying that's not restful for her if she has to cook for a family of 6 or anything else. So where are there restaurants in the area? What are the alternative ways to eat regularly and keep everybody fed? And then it's activities. What are restful activities or what are stressful activities? Because, my wife, for example, and one of my daughters, she's not on water, on a boat, you get sick. They don't enjoy that at all.
Who's that?
My wife and my oldest daughter.
Oh, I'm the same way.
They're motion sickness,
I'm
right?
the same way.
That's why you were outside pushing because you weren't in the
That's
boat.
right.
Yeah, so you
I was
just
like,
pushing it
"Get
down.
me on terra firma, man. I'm tired
Yeah, that's
of
right.
moving
So that's
around."
where I can do an event that half the family would enjoy. But then what's the other half the family going to do? And are we all together? So you really consider about your environment for rest and what is restful, because some people will enjoy or won't enjoy that as well. And that can be in every area. And so it's one, considering our rest and what we need to do and creating balance. So it's not always the same thing because that challenges us. But two, then creating that whom we're with, we also have rest at the same time.
Now, speaking about it, we shared a little bit about the experiences, and wouldn't you say it's true that experiences can be more life-giving than things?
That's
like
right.
for when you get gifts, we're coming up, at a special time when people giving gifts for birthdays, Christmas, whatever. It's great to get a thing, but an experience, like even the experience that I shared being with the family, cutting the sandbar where I had to keep getting off and pushing. It wasn't particularly fun, but it was a heck of an experience. And the kids still talk about it to this day as years ago. And wouldn't you say that those experiences bring more life to you and to people that you love than even a very valuable thing?
Yeah, and I think that goes down to the joy. You're getting enjoyment from that experience with rest, right? And so how do we extend that rest? It's the memory, right? And that's the experience that contributes to the memory.
How
And
to
so
extend the rest?
yeah, so
Okay.
if you go back and you reflect on your trip to Niobrara,
Uh-huh.
right, you probably have some sense of joy, or at least when you
Yeah.
tell that story, it was entertaining for
Yeah.
me and I'm sure your family because they can make fun of you. So we get rest from it all,
Uh-huh.
even though it's
Uh-huh.
not present day.
That's
Right.
interesting.
And
So the rest that you had, you can kind of project it and share it, and it grows with other people.
yeah, and I think as people talk about their vacations, their time of rest, they naturally relax.
Mhm.
Right? If you're with someone they're highly stressed and you ask them, "Hey, tell me about something you enjoy doing." Their bodies will naturally relax.
Right.
Now, they're not there on that beach. They're not in the Niobrara. They're not in that environment. But that can extend your rest if you choose the right destination with the right people at the right time that creates a holistic experience you can draw
Okay.
upon. And even as you see people describe experiences 10, 15 years earlier, they're still telling that story based on that experience.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we think it has to be destination. It's not really destination is the last thing. It's why at that stage in time did you need rest, right? What was the productivity? God rested on the seventh day. What was the productivity before that? In fact, as we look at God specifically, that was his crowning achievement. And if you see anybody that maybe graduates college or does something that's a big achievement, they win a championship and highlights, you're creating highlights around that experience. And so I also want to speak not just on destination, but disposition. Because I think rest, if we are only expecting rest to be at a destination, we're doing ourselves a disservice. We can create rest wherever we're at. And there's all sorts of things that can do that, right? And for me, for example, on a daily basis, my rest period is over lunch. I know that in the middle of the day, in order for me to catch up at the editor, I have to leave the environment I'm in. I can't be in my office. And so as a result of that, every day, I remember as a new employee first starting, my wife's like, hey, take the leftovers for lunch. I did that one day. I mean, I probably have eaten out every day, but that one day in my entire life, I said, I got to get out of here. To me, that is changing the environment,
Uh,
going somewhere to then be able to reset.
gotcha.
And so it's not a matter of anything else. And so she knows that. She doesn't worry about my lunch. She knows that it's there. And so I've even, and Fridays are my standing lunch with my wife as a time of rest to say, hey, how can I align that there? And we just
Good.
pick where that's at. And she decides where
Yeah.
to go every time because that's rest for me, is I don't have to make the decision. So I think sometimes we think of rest as a destination or an event instead of a disposition that's saying, okay, I just need to break from this.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might be just sitting in wherever you're at and saying, I just need to get up and walk around for a minute, right? I may need to walk around the building or I need to leave and change our disposition, change our orientation around that. And so rest is just changing our disposition instead of destination. And sometimes like, I didn't play golf today, so I didn't get any rest in, right? Or I didn't go on a vacation this year, so I didn't get any rest in. More of it is a disposition than a destination.
Understood. Understood. So we've covered a lot of things with these podcasts, priority wise. First priority we talked about was faith, right? Faith in God, number one priority. Then family, then being productive, and finally being intentional about enjoyment and rest. That's kind of a lot of things to juggle. How do you, well, two-part question. Who do you go to help when these are competing priorities? And second to that is there, do you have a process to be able to prioritize these that you use?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, that's why they're priorities. They don't stand alone.
Okay.
It's a plural, priorities, and then they're prioritized, right? So they're 1 through 4. And so the decision's made beforehand. I will always defer to the higher priority. And so let's work that from the bottom up and the top down. And so we'll start with the bottom up and then we'll work it from the top down. My bottom priority of the 4 prioritized items is enjoyment. So if I am prioritizing my life around enjoyment, then let's say someone called me today and wanted me to go on a 2-week excursion to 30 countries. I enjoy travel, right? And I'd be like, yes, I'll do that.
That sounds exhausting.
Right.
Okay.
And so actually there's a reality show that is traveling the world and they're quick activities. And that's how I'd travel personally. Right. And
I
so that's
know.
over 30 to 45 days.
I don't know. I couldn't keep up with your 3 countries in 2 days and then back in the office the next day.
So
Rough.
if my
Okay.
priority was enjoyment,
Yeah.
I would say, let's go do it.
Yeah.
Done. Now, then I have a priority above that. What about productivity? Am I productive in that environment over 30 days? Can other areas in my life, including work, can I be gone for 30 days? Do I have that luxury at this stage of life that I can be gone and it won't be dilutive to that priority? Then I'm not with my family for 30 plus days, right? That's a top priority above that. And then, I mean, okay, I think God would say, hey, you're seeing my creation, and it depends on how you interact with the
You might be
individuals
able to
there.
justify
You
that
could
one.
justify
Okay.
that one of the others, but it's certainly dilutive to the other two. So then I'll work the next one up. So now I got a productivity at work, right? Let's say there's an opportunity that would say, you can go do this, productive environment. You got to go spend 30 days in this course that will make you more productive or whatever the case might be. And where would I want to raise my family, right? We're in the Midwest. I grew up here. My wife's lived in multiple states and markets. We determined that the Midwest values and the approach to life is what is ideal for our family, right? Education, among other things. So I'm saying, okay, what is the best opportunity here? In fact, I in my travels I went to Mexico one time, and while I was there, I was meeting this father, and his daughter was there, and his daughter was a lawyer, and he was, of course, as many parents do, communicating and bragging about how his daughter, who was a lawyer, finished top in her class, and she was the best lawyer. And so me being relatively ignorant, I would say, so where did you end up going to work, right? Because in America, They would say, go to the best law firm and get paid the highest amount of
Right.
value because we value productivity.
No matter where it is.
No matter where it is, if it's in, Timbuktu, go there, get a
Yeah.
job and establish your life. And she goes, you're kidding, right? And I said, no. I mean, where would you go work? She goes, I went to the best law firm within a 10-minute drive of my house because she goes, I prioritize family.
Uh-huh.
She said, I am going to be at my family dinners every night with my parents, and I can care for them, and I probably will stay with them until I move out, but we'll see. But I will be very, very close to my family. So I'm going to find the best job in that chosen trade, in her case being a lawyer, close to my family. And to me, that illuminated that priority, saying,
Right.
I am not going to go where it pays the most. I'm going to go where I can maximize my second priority, family, and find the best use of my passion being a lawyer
Without compromising those priorities.
without compromising those priorities. And so I recognized that, and I looked back and I said, you know what? That's probably what I did. I said, I have always chosen where we live, not by the location and the view and everything else, by saying, okay, what is the best environment for my family, right? And so where is my wife going to be comfortable? Where are my kids going to be comfortable? And then I can travel or find the best employment there and then be productive with that third priority. And so then there's a second priority as we work our way up. And so then I say, okay, and certainly when we talk about productivity, I don't want that to be dilutive to God. I need to speak to that too, is saying I'm not going to take a job that would be considered unethical, let's say.
Okay.
I'm not going to be in an industry where it would sacrifice my morals. And throughout time, in fact, as I started this, one of the jobs I left, I did not agree with all the decisions that were being made. And that was a prompting that made me leave, to say, you know what? I do not want to be associated with these activities that I don't believe in, because if I am guilty by association, whether I was partaking in them or not, the organization and individual that was leading it at the time would be associated with those activities.
And you're talking, you just didn't disagree. You felt like there was some sort of moral aspect to it. It
Sure.
was ethical that you did not want to be associated with.
Right. And some people, they have different choice on their ethics. It's just something I didn't
Right.
choose to be a part of. Right. And I think that's the other thing, is if there's a group of friends or a business that we're saying, you know what, I appreciate that approach. Right. And it can be not maybe illegal, but just unethical, right? Things that I wouldn't necessarily want to partake in. And so then I'm saying, I will not let my day-to-day faith be a struggle in the environment. And so then that's why I left that work. And so then your second priority, as I work my way up, is the family. And so I would say, okay, I am not going to, especially as I chose my spouse, have a family that is not aligned with my faith. And so then it was a matter of the commitment of my faith.
Mhm.
And my faith actually worked to find my family, because I said, God, there's got to be someone out there that'll accept this guy, And so that's where my faith worked in my thing. I said, well, it'll be a tough find, but I created 8 billion people, so
That's gotta be one
there's
in
a
there.
chance. There's a chance. And so that was the second one. And then we go to the top, and I say, okay, now we'll work our way the top down, because I could try and work at the bottom up, and I'd be chasing the wind, because I have to figure all these things out as I go. Instead, I decided I'm going to start with the top down. So, God, what are your principles for a life of priority? And even as we discuss, the formation of the earth, it was very clear, right? If we look at how God created the heavens, he's thinking eternally. He created the heavens first. That is where humans end.
Hmm. Interesting.
Then second, he created the earth. That's what we inhabit,
Mhm.
right? And so he's creating our end destination, him in his case, heavens, earth, family in our case, right, as an analogous. Then he began to produce.
And the Bible does talk about the fact that God will create a new heaven and a new earth.
Right.
So we started with that, and we're going to end with that.
That's right. So again, working his priorities. Heavens, that's the end destination. That's, in his case, that's where he is, right? That's where we can convene with him. So that's the end destination. The next is the earth, where we inhabit. You can make that analogous to family. We spend the majority of our time working with and for and around and communing with our family. That's the earth in that case. Then he goes into producing. That's the next thing he did. He then created all the things that are part of that earth, whether he divided the water from the land to producing the things that we do to consume, etc. And then his fourth priority was rest. And so again, as we discussed earlier, his fourth priority is rest. So that is his priorities. Well, that worked for God. I should consider it.
Yeah, he's been God a long time.
And quite frankly, I mean, whether we want to believe it or not, I mean, somebody created us, and I would attribute that to a God. And it worked for a lot of people. And so then it's a priority. So now I have a framework. Instead of trying to create this based on
Uh-huh.
what do I like, what are my
Uh-huh.
preferences, and where does my passion lead
Or
me,
what does society say?
or what does society
Yeah.
say, I say, what's a framework that's worked?
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's there in the first couple of chapters. Let's start at the beginning,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's where then it's priorities. And so how do you balance that? You create a framework. And so then back to the point is now, as I walk my way down that framework, it becomes very clear what should and should be made, just as I worked my way up from that. And we say, okay, will this decision, and I run this through my mind, and now it's second nature, but will this decision be dilutive to my priorities? Because as I said on the first podcast, our priorities are not what we say, it's how we live. We are judging ourselves on our intention, where the world will judge us on our actions.
What
So
they see. They can't see our
what they
intention.
see, they don't see our intention. I intended to spend time with family. I intended to have a faith in God. No, you were at work all the time. No, you were on the golf course all the time. That was really your priority. And sometimes we just need to say, my priorities will be illuminated by my energy, not even my time. What are we pouring all our energy? And that becomes our priority. So is our energy balanced in association with our intended priorities? And that's the reconciliation of that. And where we'll have stress is when our intentions and our actions, there's a gap there. If our intentions are to be more family oriented and people are telling, and we're saying that, and we say that to people, but we're not holding that accountable, we probably need to go and evaluate where we're at in life and say, clearly my actions are not demonstrating that to my wife, my children, and otherwise, that my priorities are my family, right? And so then we need to evaluate, where am my energy going? Am I investing energy in my extracurricular activities to a greater degree, or my productivity, right? I can get in and be very productive for a period of time and enjoy that. And at the same time, let's talk about that, because that's kind of the struggle for me, is really around productivity, which I value highly, and family. And so I say to my wife, I was like, if I can just send this email, I will be able to, in our free time together, be more focused. Otherwise, I'm thinking, I got to talk to this person. I'm going to forget. I can't be engaged in the conversation. And so she, instead of worrying about it for 45 minutes, said, go type your email,
Mm.
because that's a conversation. And she goes, type your email. And then I come back and I'm like, it's done. It's done. There's a date and time stamp on it, and was sent. And now I can be free with the family and
Yeah.
an enjoyment. So that's how you can monitor that priority. Sometimes it's that 5 minutes will give me the freedom to enjoy and also spend time with family, as opposed to just having that hanging over me because of my inclination to productivity. So you really look at those priorities and you say, can I be, in the case of that example, more productive with my family and free time if I invest 5 minutes of energy into that and get it off the plate? And then it's not dilutive to those other things, because sometimes it needs to be done, has to be done, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, is follow a framework that worked instead of just trying to figure it out as you go. And that's the example of God in that case.
Now, some people find themselves already along in life, and they look back and they evaluate the priorities that they've carried to their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond, even. Um, it's impossible just to go back and change everything you've done. What do you do when you realize that your priorities have not been aligned properly? You want to align them. Is it too late? Can you do it going forward? Can you do anything about what has already been done?
Yeah, and that's really difficult. And I can say I've experienced that with multiple people that I've talked to. Is how do you change history? You can't. But history's made you who you are, and so lean into that to many ways and saying, hey, all these were by design, and you made those choices, and so you can first punish yourself by those mistakes that you now have a new perspective on that you made at the time, or say, hey, this helps me to be empathetic to other people that are otherwise there. And so, I think there's a tension to manage and a problem to solve. If we had not had our priorities established early, we would consider that a problem, right? But as a byproduct of those decisions at that time, it's a tension to manage, right? If I had made a decision that's certainly more permanent, whether that's a relationship decision or a career decision or otherwise, that becomes a tension to manage. And so there's things that my wife and I will just never agree on, right? And some of that is I like to plan ahead, for example. And so, and she's saying, let's live in the moment. I remember, when we were first there,
I've
she's
heard
like,
her say that to you.
stop and smell the roses. I'm like, someone has to plant them, right? And they needed to do that like 6 months ago so that someone can enjoy it. So ultimately, that's a tension to manage.
Right.
I am never going to tell her I'm never going to have success, maybe, because I'll try. To tell her, hey, plan ahead so there's roses, you can smell them
Uh-huh.
later. And she's never going to convince me to stop and only smell the roses. So we will say that as a subtle reminder, but we don't have to win the point. And I think sometimes we're trying to correct history by winning the point instead of just letting it go. But we don't need to bring that point up every time. And at the same time is we need to accept that that other person that we accepted and loved at whatever time we committed to them, is in a position that that is who they are, and we are working towards progress, but we can't live in a state of judgment because judgment will eat away at us and the relationship. At the same time, is we need to say, okay, what is acceptable and what will not and will not discuss or take part in. And so that's when you're in that priority and that decision's already been made for you. Then it's living in that tension, and there's going to be tension. Don't deny it's there, but understand how you manage it best. And I think that's what we can do in those environments.
Outstanding. Well, Reed, thanks again for sharing with us. This brings us to the end of our time. Appreciate your insights and your examples, your life examples. Insightful and also can be pretty funny too. Life's a funny place. All right, we prioritized enjoyment and rest while honoring our other priorities. Thanks to all of our listeners for joining ReedFlections, a podcast on life, leadership, and learning. Now, next time, we're going to talk about habits of mind and thought. We're going to get a little cerebral here with Captain Cerebral. Until then, this is Art Calderon. Please get out there and be purposeful.
Thank you for giving me the last word again, Art. You're
You
so
took it.
good at
I did
that.
not
Yeah,
give
yeah.
it.
Well, either way, I have it. So I will say this: sometimes we need to, and maybe you're at this stage. You've heard all four priorities. Go and reprioritize your life. It's always now's the best time to start. Saying, you know what, all this time we can justify our experience and our history, but go reprioritize. And the best place to start is actually looking at where you apply your energy. Do an audit on the last week and say, where is my energy going? And if we said that and we extrapolate that going forward, we multiply that by 20 years, is that where we want to be? And your priorities will be based on where you apply your energy. So then say, next week, start immediately. Where am I going to reapply my energy and increase that energy in that environment? Maybe it's leaving an environment. Maybe it starts, I would highly start with your faith. Where are you at? Reconcile that. Saying, if I have a framework and who am I working for in the end? Is it God? And then second, where are my family and my priorities and energy and time? Third, then where's my productivity with my energy? And then finally, putting energy to not leave something, but go towards enjoyment to get rest. And so reprioritize your life. That's the purpose of this. If you want to live a life on purpose, you reprioritize first, and then you'll be in a position that you can capitalize on your purpose. And we look forward to talking about our mindset and how that'll be effective next time.